We're looking at nothing is impossible with God today. I have a question for you. Can you get an ordinary A4 piece of paper, and is there some way that you can make it so you can fit your whole body through the piece of paper? You can use a pair of scissors, one A4 piece of paper, and remember, you need to go through it, so it's not like I can just quickly, cut off an edge and just sort of have my, it's got to be like a ring or some kind of hole. So I encourage you to pause the video, have a go, get out your scissors, have a bit of a cut, like as an example, maybe if I fold it in half and then, I don't know, cut it up to here and then go, all right, well, now am I going to get my whole body through this? Well, I can get my arm through. Am I going to get my head through? Oh, I don't think so. Maybe I'll get a new piece of paper. Keep trying. So go through, pause the video, see if you can get your whole body through the piece of paper. And then when you unpause, I'll show you how to do it. All right, hopefully you've paused it and you've given it a go. This is actually how you do it. Now, as I explain how you do it, I'm also going to tell you a bit of a Bible story. So I'm actually going to tell you about a story that we find in the Bible from 1 Kings chapter 18. So maybe I'd actually encourage you to get out your own Bible and read along the story, because I'm going to paraphrase it a bit as I tell you the story. Now, on another note, for our activity, I've actually folded my piece of paper in half, and on the mountain fold, or right now it's a valley, as it makes a V, I've cut right where it's folded, and I've gone all the way up to close to the edge, obviously not cutting it all the way. I'm going to actually just keep doing that as I tell you my story. So I'm going to just have another quick snip, maybe 2 centimeters wide, and then I'll have another snip and I'll keep going. So there in the land of Israel was a land that was very barren. Barren just sort of means there's not many trees, and in fact there was a big drought, and I've got a picture of a cloud there because it did not rain for, wouldn't you believe it, 3 whole years. Now, it didn't rain for 3 whole years because Israel, God's chosen people, they continued to disobey God. And there's this guy called King Ahab. Now, King Ahab, you see, he was not the best of kings, and he decided to follow these gods called the Baals. The Baals. And they're really, really horrible gods. We have the lowercase g when we spell it as gods, because we know they're not the one true God, and they're all not good. So he followed the Baals, and he, in fact, well, that's the next bit, he had 450 Baal priests, and I guess you can probably guess how many priests he had that followed the one true God, which was none. You see, because he saw this guy called Elijah, who was a prophet, and he called him a bit of a jester. He said, you're a fool, you're a madman, and he did not like him, so he actually banished him. So when this man named Elijah came back onto the scene, and a lot of the book of 1 Kings is actually about Elijah, Elijah came, and in fact one of Elijah's friends, Obadiah, he's like, oh look, it's really good to see you, but leave, because I might get killed just for talking to you. You're going to make my life miserable. Because, the king Ahab saw him as a bit of a jest, as someone who was really not a good guy. And in fact, it's because Elijah kept saying, hey, you're doing the wrong thing. You shouldn't be following these Baals. And in fact, we're in a drought because of it. So what Elijah did was he was like, you know what? We're going to have instead of the battle of the bands, we're going to have the battle of the gods. You bring all of your priests, all the people that follow Baal, and I'm going to bring, all the people that follow God, which is just me, myself, and I, just him. and I am going to challenge you. So they go to this famous mountain called Mount Carmel, and 450 priests of Baal end up there. They're wearing their nice robes, their best hat, they're dressed to the nines, as we would say. 450 versus 1. So, one thing, and I've forgotten what my line was here. Let me just quickly, I know you can see my thing, but let me just read it. I had a Bible verse here. What was it again? Elijah in chapter 18, verse 21, he says, "How long will you not decide between two choices? If the Lord is the true God, follow him. But if Baal is the true God, follow him." But the people said nothing. So that's what I needed to find. So they had the choice, and they were like, well, I don't know. The one true God, I don't know if he's true or not. So Elijah said, well, this is my challenge. We're going to get 2 bulls, 1 and 2. And I'm going to have one, you're going to have the other. Now, here the rules are simple. We're going to cut up the bull as a sacrifice. We're going to make some altars. We're going to make a fire using this wood. And the one trick is, though, you're not allowed to use matches. You can't use flint, can't use steel, can't use the stick when you do this trick. He said the only way you can light the fire is by praying to your God. So, being a very fair man, he's like, you know what, you guys, you have 450 priests. How about you give it a go first? So, they put their hands together. Oh, this will be easy. We got 450 priests versus 1. Our God's going to easily do it. In fact, our God is the God of fire. So, you think we'll probably win versus this God of Israel, the chosen people, whoever that is. So, they end up praying, and they are trying to light the fire, and they get so frustrated, they end up getting swords and hitting themselves with it, and other weapons, spears, and they really, really badly hurt themselves, and they pray from noon till night. And it gets to the very, very end of the day, and they give up. They're exhausted, and they go, Elijah, this is impossible. You've told us to do this thing, and it is impossible. Can't be done. So Elijah said, aha, well, you don't know my God. He got a shovel, and he dug a very large trench around where he was going to build his fire. The trench was deep enough that you could fit probably about 10 litres worth of water. That's probably about 5 milk jugs. After he made this trench, he got 4 buckets of water, which I'm imagining is probably about, again, 10 litres worth of water. And I know that you probably know this, that water and fire don't mix. Anyway, he decided to do the impossible, because we believe in the impossible God, and he poured the 4 buckets of water on top of the fireplace, onto the wood, because there's no fire yet. Then Elijah, he bowed down, and he set up some rocks. He set up 12 rocks to symbolize the 12 tribes of Israel. And here is what happens. Reading from 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 36. Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant, and have done these things at your command. Answer me, Lord. Answer me, so these people will know that you are Lord. You, Lord, are God, and that you are turning their hearts back again. Then the fire of the Lord fell and burned up the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and the soil, and also licked up the water in the trench. And here I am just remembering. I had it on the next slide. I didn't need to find it. And there you go. So the water licked up the fire licked up all of the water, even in the trench. So Elijah wanted to have the most impossible challenge ever because he trusted and knew that God could do it. And then you can see there in verse 39 it says, when all the people saw this, they fell prostrate, which means like you're lying down with your face on the ground, and cried, "The Lord, He is God. The Lord, He is God." So, we believe in God, the God of the impossible. What I'm going to do now with my little like Hawaiian skirt is I've flipped it over and I'm actually going to cut along the line again in between. I'm going to ignore the very first one. I'm just going to quickly snip it. So back to the story. Very quickly, before I summarize everything, what you're going to want to know what happened. So King Ahab, he then realized, oh no, you know what? I have done the wrong thing. Why have I followed these 450 priests and followed Baal when Baal can't even do the one little thing he was meant to be able to do, which would be the god of fire? And then Elijah, as the people turned back to God and trusted in him again, he looked out into off the top of the mountain and looked over into the sea, and he prayed to God, and then this little cloud about the size of a hand popped up from the water and floated over to the land, and then it began to rain. So as I said, we had 3 whole years of it not raining. So again, another miracle. So then obviously their crops would have grown and life would have been wonderful again. Last thing I'm going to do with this, you can see I've now sort of got a big zigzag, ignoring the very first one and the very last one. I'm just going to snip in between here where it's connected. So if I open it up, you can see where it's connected here. Just going to snip, and I'll do that the whole way through. Sometimes in our lives, we feel like we are in an impossible situation. Whether that's some friendship issues, maybe some people being mean to you and you've told them to stop and they haven't. You've told the teacher and they've told them to stop, but for whatever reason, some things just happen and it's really hard to stop. Maybe parents are sometimes getting upset at each other, and that really, really upsets us, and we want it to stop, but it just seems impossible because they, just doesn't seem like they want to forgive each other or what their issue is. Maybe school sometimes just feels impossible and you're feeling tired, you don't want to do your work, and you don't know how you're going to get through this day because you're just feeling pooped. And yet, it really does feel impossible. Maybe you're just finding it a bit hard to make some friends right now, and it just feels impossible because it doesn't seem like anyone likes you. What can we do about it? Well, the good thing is, from this story, we know that nothing is impossible for God. Absolutely nothing. And in fact, God loves the challenge, and in the story, he wanted to prove himself by even covering the wood in water so that it was even harder to go into flames. And then, in fact, the flames are so hot, it licked up all the dirt and all the water disappeared because it was so hot. How cool is that? We know from Matthew chapter 19, verse 26, with man, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. And that's Jesus speaking when he was talking about how, a rich person can go into heaven. He's saying this, us saving ourselves is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. What we can do is be like Elijah and pray. When we looked at Elijah's prayer, he didn't say, God, it would be kind of nice if you helped me out. No, Elijah prayed and he really believed it, didn't he? Also, Elijah trusted in God. He had that courage to stand up to 450 priests and still go, you know, I know that my God is going to win because I know he's the one and only true God. To finish today's devotion, I have finished cutting it, and you can see if I stand up that we have one giant connected. It's all one big ring of string, and as long as I don't rip it, I will be able to get my whole body through. Are you ready? 1, 2, and 3. I hope you have an excellent day today.